Consumer expectations have never been higher. But with the evolving economic and competitive pressures, it's getting harder for brands to deliver the kind of consistent, compelling experiences that keep customers loyal. Can operations and facilities leaders find ways to meet these demands while growing their footprint and ultimately drive revenue? Let's find out. Welcome to Elevating Brick and Mortar, a show that discusses the crucial role that facilities, construction, and operations play in designing and delivering a compelling customer experience. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Elevating Brick and Mortar. Thank you for joining us. I'm here today with Allison Turner, SVP of Real Estate and Development at Bond Vet. Allison, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me today.
So, Allison, let's get going, right? You have a big job, and essentially it sounds like you own the entire life cycle of brick and mortar locations at your company. So, can you share with us, what does that mean? What are you responsible for?
Pretty much when we say we want to expand in growth, my team is taking it on. So we are finding the locations, doing the strategy behind finding the locations, designing the clinics, then building them out, and then launching them with our launch team and setting them up, and then maintaining them with the facilities team. So it's anything in the brick and mortar world we're responsible for.
So do you do new store openings as well?
We do the new store openings. So my team is the one launching and setting everything up with FF&E and supplies and making sure it's set up ready to go for day one with the doctors and teams come in.
So your entire business is brick and mortar based, right? And you just mentioned growth. So do you see yourself as like the growth engine of the company in terms of the entire teams or all the teams that you oversee? And how do you position those teams internally to ensure that the organization understands the kind of investments and the people and the talent that you need to do this the right way?
Yes, we are the growth engine. It is what drives, the parents and pets coming in the door every day. Without the spaces to go into, we're not able to serve the communities and the teams and pets that are out there. So the way we're staying ahead of this growth is a lot of internal communication and being really tied in with all the teams within the organization, from ops to people to finance. It takes a village to get these done.
That's right. And, I want to talk more about Bond Vet, but before we go there, I'd love to hear about your journey, right? I was looking at your background. It's a pretty interesting background, right? I mean, you are an architect, right? You worked in architectural firms, and then you ended up on the retail side. And then even in that space, you've done luxury retail, you've done fitness, and now, medtail or, vet clinics. Tell us about how did that happen?
I think I went to architecture school at Syracuse and just loved the idea of building and what it meant to create. I ended up going to Gensler as one of my first jobs. And I think going to a firm teaches you a lot of great foundational skills in what it means to be organized and produce sets. And as you're trying to go for your licensing, all the criteria. What I found on that side, I don't know if I was the greatest designer, to be honest. I think what I found that I really loved was the development and the building side of it all. I think I understood what it meant to be an architect, but I really liked just putting it all together and what it meant in the management side of it. So I got really lucky to get my first in-house job over at Estee Lauder. And there I got to learn to build what I had been drawing. And I got to see a 360 view of the whole process. And I think from that point on, I was bitten by that bug of being on that retail side of scale and development. And from there, I just got really lucky in my career to jump to amazing brands doing the same thing, putting scale into their footprints that they had already had. So it's been a really interesting journey. But what I've found is, the parts are all different, but the theory and strategy is very similar. So it can apply from retail to fitness, to medtail, to co-working.
Right.
And it's been really fun in doing that and taking those kind of different skills and applying them to these different programs.
Love it. So for folks in our audience who might not know Bond Vet yet,
Yet.
can you tell us a bit about your company and where are you based? How many locations do you have?
We are based in New York City. We are a boutique de novo veterinary company, really bringing an elevated experience to the veterinary world in an accessible way in a lot of different properties. We have been building, we just yesterday opened our 42nd in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Nice.
So it's been a really exciting growth period for us. We have been contiguous, really expanding in the Northeast, down from Boston to DC and into Chicago. And now we're really pushing for a more national expansion and really in the early stages of strategy of what that looks like and how we can bring Bond to more markets and really bring our offering and product to other people. We're really just excited about what we can bring to communities.
So, I mean, there's this massive wave of medtail right now, right? And it's touching all sorts of medical services. Yours, of course, is it caters to pets and pet parents, I think you call them. But why do you think there's this boom right now? What's driving that?
I think there's an accessibility to it. I think, we try to bring one of those conveniences, the same that you would do to urgent care, to human health care. We're trying to find the same in other properties and areas as well. We're accessible. We're trying to bring another offering, something front of mind to people that, sometimes it's really hard to search out a vet. They're not as front and center. There are a lot of, I'd say, mom and pop brands out there, which is great, but we're also trying to bring it more accessible to different people and going into properties that would not traditionally have had vet use in it. So a lot of mixed developments, heavy resi and retail with F&B and having us as an amenity to those properties.
Does BondVet build from the ground up, or do you find existing practices and then partner or acquire? What's your growth strategy there?
We are de novo, so we're not ground up, but we are interior fit outs. So we are, standalone-ish in between any front of mind location of brand that you would find. We could be next to your F&B, next to a nail salon, something that's convenient though, that we're front of mind and that anybody who may not know us will see us and, come check us out.
And when you think about what makes a consumer or a pet parent choose Bond Vet over a local mom and pop, what is the sentiment that you're trying to invoke? What gets you, the customer, and what keeps them coming back?
I think we're putting accessible spaces front of mind to people and being there when maybe another provider cannot be. We provide urgent care and wellness, and we're hoping that we can be a part of your pet's, health journey for anything that they may need. So it's again this accessibility and providing, a different environment, something that's warm, inviting, that you're walking in and you feel that you're going to be taken care of. We have a hospitality, element to our service that when you're walking in, okay, I know that I'm in the right place. They're taking care of me, and my fur child, if you will, is going to be taken care of.
You think of this as a service-oriented industry, right? It's all about, providing great care, of course, but it's also service-oriented. Can you explain that a bit? Like, what does loyalty look like?
It's hospitality, and I think we're going into it's experiential. Your pet is an extension of your family, and we're really trying to provide a service that when they walk in their door, they know they are in good hands.
Right.
That the minute you walk in, from the environment you see to the initial greeting from the care coordinators, that you're in the right place. It's providing a holistic approach to it, from the brick and mortar experience to the care that you're receiving. But I think it's putting ourselves and positioning ourselves in locations that we are of a front of mind, that you see us front and center,
Right.
that we come to mind when you need these services.
How important is the maintaining part of this whole life cycle of, the physical space as it relates to, customer experience and what perception your customers have of your brand?
I think with anything, when you see a clean, well taken care of space, it means it's an elevated experience. I think it's just perception, and we spend a lot of time working through that. The paint looks refreshed. Nothing's falling off the walls. The color temperatures are all the same. That you have a consistent experience every single time you're going in. So the first time you're coming in is your first impression, but your second and third should be the same as the first. It should be really consistent and solid. And we have a lot of pride in maintaining a clean, well-kept space. That's inviting.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I think one of the things our industry does poorly is articulate the impact, the built environment has on the brand, right? In many cases, these functions are looked at in silos. There's a team that's building the actual, physical space, and there's someone that takes over and maintains it. But ultimately, leaders like yourself who kind of own the entire life cycle can narrate how important the actual physical space is and that it's actually the growth engine. Because so many times you think, when we talk to, facilities teams, they don't feel as empowered to go and ask for investments and to go and ensure that their locations look bright and warm and welcoming and clean, right? They have to fight harder with, keeping the same budget, forget about increasing them, budgets usually tend to shrink. What has worked to get the right folks to listen and understand the importance of the physical space as it relates to growth and the brand and building customer loyalty?
Yeah, just to echo, it's definitely a challenge. I think, with all of us, facilities and allocating those dollars and sharing how important it is in maintaining these spaces, because a few of those dollars up front, we have, will guarantee the life cycle. We're holding on to a lot of these spaces for 10 years. So the little love that we continually put into it really guarantees the success and, longevity of the space. I think, doing consistent walkthroughs with our teams, sharing challenges, and again, I think communication transparency is everything, is sharing of why it's important to maintain. But our leaders know how important it is in front facing, so we've been lucky in that sense that they know beautiful spaces mean a consistent, environment and for people to keep coming in. So I think there's an understanding there, which I've been lucky with here at Bond.
Consistency is a word you used, a few times, and that's great because I think consumers expect that whether they walk into a brand in the middle of, Idaho or Dallas or New York City, that the brand essentially offers them the same sort of experience. What are your thoughts on consistency? How does a good facilities team or a good development team ensure that the experience is still consistent no matter how fast or how big you get?
I think a lot of planning, a lot of planning up front to make sure that we can afford and bring it to all these markets. I think we're a Northeast brand, and making sure that when we're bringing this to other parts of the country, that they're getting this same elevated, even if, I don't know, New York City has this kind of, we're the flagship. A lot of things start here, but when we're going to these new markets that are not considered ginormous metros, you want to make sure those people are walking and feel as special as they do in some of the places that if they were back in New York with their parent, with their pet. So consistency is important, that you are translating the brand seamlessly from different areas of the country. To me, it's all about brand building. And brand, if you have the same look and feel, whether, again, secondary market, first market, it just means you care about your entire, brand and customer community the same way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What is your relationship with operations? And you're a doctor-driven organization, right? And how do you see the relationship with the staff in on the ground, the doctors? Like, how do you build that trust and relationship with your organization?
I think initial kickoffs, I think, after we set up with the launch team, that initial kickoff of we've built this space for you. Now we're still the team that services this clinic while you're operating. So I think, again, communication, giving them the right tools to say if something's broken, come find us. Information and transparency is key. From
Yeah.
a vinyl peeling off the wall to a shelf falling, you just let us know and see how we can support. But I think it's those initial kickoffs and always understanding this development team in-house is here to support you. In the initial setups of these clinics, we're trying to make sure we're having touch bases to share the plans, to see if there's feedback. What are we not seeing in the way you operate and how we're designing? What can we do better in either sustaining a longer lifespan of the space in terms of materials we're picking, from specs that we're picking? We try to do it a collaborative way. We're still in growth period, and there's always a huge learning curve, and we're always evolving. But I think it's just really trying to hear from the operators what we're putting in is really how it should be used and done.
You seem to be passionate about smart and sustainable design. Can you explain what that means and why you care about it?
I think it's how these clinics can live on in these 10-year cycles. What are we picking that doesn't have to be renovated constantly? We're not wasting, that we're trying to make sure we're either using things that were in the space initially, where electrical
Right.
panels were, where HVAC units, we're not throwing them out if they're 2 to 3 years old, and really making sure that we're using what was in the space responsibly, but then picking things that last a long time, that we're not constantly throwing things out, and that we're making smart decisions that translate well for the life cycle of that clinic.
Do you think that enough leaders out there in our space are doing enough to drive the right best practices or design their locations and spend the little extra money to build it in a more sustainable way? You think there's enough being done out there?
I think it's hard. I think we're all up against budgets and what it means to navigate between what the word sustainable means, because it can sometimes mean it's more expensive, or it can mean it's not possible in the timelines. I think we're all
Right.
just really trying, and I think it just keeps evolving on us and what that word means. I think if we're just taking, reflecting on each, the way our brands are and trying to do the best that we can with what we've got, I think that's just a challenge in itself. But I think we're all trying, but it keeps evolving. And, on some of our timelines and the way we all work, we're always moving so fast. And by the time we think we have it figured out, the game's changed on us a little again.
That's true for sure. You've also mentioned that you're very passionate about building and mentoring teams and talent. And I'd love to understand, like, what what's important, when you look at your team. Like, how do you go about building the talent of the future?
I've been really lucky, and I've had some really amazing teams that I've worked with as being a part of. I've either mentored or learned from. And, mentoring means a lot to me. I feel that I can always come from a place of being in their position. I've worn different hats over the last 25 years and try to come in from a place of, I know where you've been, I know the challenge, I know what I'm about to ask you is crazy, but I'm coming from a place to explain why we're doing these things. Maybe some of those things that I never got, and at those long hours that I pushed and I never knew why, I'm trying to
Right.
explain the whys and really push to show how awesome this industry can be and what it means to get what we do and how we build and how we bring brands to life in different,
That's right.
different areas. we bring experience, whether it's from retail, co-working, pet med, you name it. It's a really fun place to be.
Do you think there's enough folks entering the space in terms of how many folks in our space are going to retire in the next 5 years, and there's not enough talent flowing in? How does that affect you?
It's hard. I think it's hard in trying to qualify the ones that can grow with you as well. I think some of the biggest challenges is going through GC over GC over GC, and you keep retraining. It's hard to find a legacy partner and have them grow with you and stay with you. It's, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's not as desirable to build anymore. I don't know. It's a lot of work, and I have such, I don't know, admiration for what our construction and building teams do. I could never do that. I could not spend those kind of long hours. And I think there's just this thing out there. It's work. And I am thankful for every single day somebody comes onto our job and puts up a wall and wires, wires an outlet. But it's tough. And I think it's just something we're just always going to have to be navigating through. And it's tough in our industry where timelines get shorter, budgets get shorter and smaller, and we don't have the resources to sometimes meet those demands.
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive shortage, and I think the more we can, share our own experiences and also kind of be evangelists for our space, the better, right? Because I think there's a lot of folks out there that are considering joining the skilled trades, that are considering joining our space. But I think it's going to need all of us to go out there and talk about the fact that what we build, like to your point, is experiences, and the impact we make to our brands is tremendous. And the impact and life you could have even in the skilled trades is great. It's just that the path might be slightly different for from what most folks might think about after graduating, but it's a great place to be. There's no option for us to not complete a job or not be there when someone needs something in facilities, right? That's the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah, it's in this service. I think it's a lot of hard work, and every day I'm on a job or visiting, I'm so appreciative and really just want to see everything they're doing. I've said to my kids even afterward, maybe you should go into skilled labor, or maybe on my second career in life, I should be a carpenter or a master electrician. There's something about that. It's definitely a challenge out there, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have huge appreciation for the kind of skill that's required to be in that role, and the more folks and young kids we can get to join our space, the better off our entire industry will be. Let's talk about the future, Allison. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? Because everyone's competing for mind space. What and efficiencies, of course, right?
Of course.
But what excites you when you look at the landscape out there? I'd love to get your thoughts as a leader in what you do, but also as a consumer. What excites you?
We're an experience, and how do we still get this hospitality front-facing human experience engaged still with the talent that and our team members that are out there? I think there's something post-COVID world, we're still looking tech aside. It's just this hospitality moment, those little moments of human engagement when we're getting into spaces. I think that's still the part that excites me about what we build. We build experience, whether, again, retail, whatever the offering, you're going into a space to engage. And to me, I don't know, I'm still focusing on the human aspect of what we do, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm leaning into that, and how, when we starting to look at our spaces, how can we take some of those barriers down, that some of the service things that we all love in engagement are a part of our spaces. The idea of a reception desk, do we really need them? Should it be that same idea that somebody's walking around in full hospitality, engaging a floor to make sure they're fully informed?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because if when I talk to a lot of folks, some folks share how the industry is concerned about jobs, right? And that with the advance of technology and robotics, that people will lose their jobs. But everyone I talk to, is of the same view that there's not enough people, that you can find to be in your locations. And so what businesses want to do is automate the parts that don't require humans, and human beings are being put in front of a house to be with the customer, right? So that you focus the human element in the most important part of business, which is customer service. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. And I think it's where this tech can enable some of the paperwork and the things that we get bogged down in just the busy work. What are some of those things that can free up that time to actually engage? We at Bond have been looking at, tech platforms to help in our note taking. So doctors can then spend more time engaging with pets and not feeling that they have a lot of paperwork, that they have to spend hours
Right.
working through. Now you can generate more time to actually see more clients versus having to do a lot of write-ups. So a lot of those back-end things that can make the human engagement part easier and give them much more time to be a part of. So that's a lot of things that we've been looking at. And I think when it comes to tech, it's something that is, a complement and not to the space, and something that is a newness to engage or tell somebody more about the brand, but not so much to take away the engagement. So it's not, you're taking away that human aspect.
Right. 100% agree. Do you think AI will have a role to play in your business?
I think in making things easier on the back end, I think the AI helps, again, cutting some of the busy work and some of the administrative things. It makes all our lives a little easier, but it
Right.
won't take away from the engagement. And again, I think it's that we say, I'll keep saying bond, that bond between humans and pets and your colleagues. And that's important. And that's something that just always has to be maintained.
Any predictions on medtail in general? You think the wave is going to continue and we're going to see more and more companies evolve and more firms coming in and acquiring existing practices?
I think it will. I think there's a need in it post COVID, and I think different ways of reinventing how people get cared for. I think could be a
Right.
lot of things that come out of it. I think at least in the pet space, there's still a lot of young puppies and a lot of dogs that need care, and we're not in a ton of markets in the U.S. So I think there's just a lot of white space and room for us to keep growing. And I think even any of our competitors, we all have something a little bit different, and we're all applying or appealing to different consumers. So I think there's a lot of space for us all to keep growing.
What does the future of Bond Vet look like? Are you going to expand across the entire U.S.?
We're looking for it. I think, right now we have been really concentrated to this Northeast and out to Chicago, but we really want to bring our offering and product to other communities and cities that think they could love it. So my team has been on the road quite a bit over the last, I'd say 3-4 months, hitting cities across, the U.S., really trying to understand those markets. If there's that white space for us, can we find, a home and feel, in certain properties and developments where we could be a great asset? And we're really starting to navigate and work with a lot of developers that are out there that see a really awesome, use for us in their properties, and an offering for developments that we offer and diversify these properties that have a lot of pets in them that could be a great convenience, and then get more eyes on their properties as well as other, people are coming to visit.
There you go. I wish you all the best with that. One fun question. Do you have a pet, Allison?
I do, and her name is Clover, and she's a 4-year-old cockapoo. So
Nice. Love it. Well, with that, I just want to say a huge thank you, Allison. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. For folks in our audience who might want to, reach out or find you, what's the best way to do that?
I guess through LinkedIn, you can find me, is always the best way. yeah, just I always like making new friends and meeting people there on that platform. So Allison Turner can be found there.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much, Allison. Really, really appreciate it. And for all those in our audience, thank you for joining us. And I'll see you on the next episode of Elevating Brick and Mortar. Well, that was Allison Turner, SVP of Real Estate and Development at BondVet. We learned that no matter who your end customer is, humans or our furry friends, the physical space influences perception and ultimately impacts your brand. When in doubt, remember what drives the business forward and gains customer loyalty. Your people and physical spaces are a big contributor to that. So, take care of them. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Sid Shetty, and I'll see you on the next episode of Elevating Brick and Mortar.
Operations and facilities teams across industries rely on ServiceChannel to ensure that their locations provide the best possible guest experience. Keep customers coming back by lowering downtime and raising your brand standards. Visit ServiceChannel.com to learn more.